Hello, everybody. Welcome to Town Hall. Uh, Welcome to the holiday season. I'm here hugging my tea. I'm here with Shelly Brzycki and Sally Madden and Tony Mesiano. We're going to take just a little small talk while we wait for people to join us. So, who's traveling this weekend? I am headed to Michigan and then later to Indiana and maybe Nashville. Um, who else is on the road? Yeah, Tony, where you going?
Traveling to South Carolina.
All right. All right. Yeah, that's where family is.
Mhm.
Shelly, I know you're around, at least you're around, as I recall.
Yeah, I am. So I am stuck in southern Wisconsin for the good or the bad of that. Hopefully, going to get out and enjoy some winter sports if we get some more snow along the
Yeah.
way. But I will be in Wisconsin. So
Sally?
I traveled all the way to southern Wisconsin last evening. So we have a condo in Milton, Wisconsin. So we came up last night and we'll spend the weekend here.
And of course, I just want to recognize there are a whole bunch of people who will be here just to make sure everything works. Our buildings are all here, people in housing. So just like over Thanksgiving, there are a whole group of people who have to keep working while some of the rest of us get a bit of a break. I just really appreciate everybody doing that. I'm going to shift over to a little bit of news here, and then we'll start with the panel. So this is going to sound like real inside baseball, but we have moved banks to win trust. It may not sound like news that a president would necessarily share, but it's actually one, a lot of work to switch banks. And two, it's pretty important. So in the past, our prior bank had essentially put requirements on us. We had to only invest in very conservative ways, not in the ways that an endowment would usually invest. So Gavin and his team have been working not only to decrease the covenants on those older loans, but get us out of that set of circumstances, which makes a big difference. It's the difference between earning 4 or 5% on your endowment and 13, 14% on your endowment. So, which over the course of 80 or $90 million turns out to be real money. So this is a really important change for us. I want to thank Gavin and Emily and that whole team for making that work. Congrats to Joanna Dabrowski. She got a $1.7 million subaward from the NIH. She's working on neural mechanisms underlying social memory. It's actually somewhat applicable to what we're talking about today, believe it or not. So it's applicable to, particular clinically, to autism and schizophrenia, but she'd done previous work on oxytocin as a modifying impact on social recognition. You'll recognize oxytocin as one of the key hormones active in pregnancy and lactation, and it's actually a core part probably of how some of our earliest human relationships form, and it's well conserved across mammals. And so it's an interesting hormonal input to how we interact with the world. So anyway, congratulations to Joanna. Uh, let's see here. In terms of searches, Lee Kucha is doing a fair amount, is doing work on our search firms for institutional advancement and the EVPR that we're able to talk about at the beginning of the year. I had a good time at Faculty Senate yesterday. It was great to see people. I also showed up at Faculty R&R briefly, so great to see people there and learn a little bit more about how the system works and learn about academic governance here and shared decision making, which is so important to the fundamental functions of a university. And I got to meet President Mike Soliski, who's the president of Lake Forest, and have a nice conversation about our partnerships. Some of that linking to stuff that'll be in the update later today when it comes out, particularly around the Granger partnership in nursing and it's been a fun week and I've really enjoyed it. And that takes us over to our panel today. The holidays come with a whole bunch of complications for many people, making them not always the easiest time, especially since we think of it as a great time for celebration and time with family and friends, and sometimes that's harder for others. And then it has been a tough week. If you look at what's happened internationally, certainly we all know that universities have been targeted for mass violence. I was at Michigan State and at the actually in the emergency their EOC, the emergencies, anyway, the place where we were trying to manage the emergency during the shooting in my aphasia kicking in right there, during the shooting in 2023. And then I went on to do some gun violence work in partnership with the University of Buffalo. I've been talking to some people about the shooting in Highland Park. That plus then the shooting by apparently the same person at MIT, the anti-Semitic violence in Australia, the Reiners, the tragedy of the Reiner family. I think it's been for a lot of people, there's been stress going on, plus it's the end of the holiday season. So we had planned this before, but talking about wellness and resilience is an important thing for us to do, as well as reminding people about the resources that we have. So Shelly, I think you're starting us out today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone is able to see this. And this
I can. We
the
can.
presentation is available through this QR code too. We're going to be sharing some great resources with everyone this morning. And so this QR code will give you a link to the presentation too, if you'd like it for in the future. Today, I get to tell you about one of my favorite parts of RFU, which is our student counseling services. And our student counseling services here on campus are a free resource for all students here. They offer short-term and brief outpatient counseling services for students. They have walk-in hours every Monday through Friday from 12 to 1 p.m., which are really helpful. And they also offer solution sessions, which can be those one time, just wanting to talk through an issue or have some skill building that might be able to be done in a short number of sessions. They also do crisis intervention. So if there is a student experiencing a mental health crisis, they're able to support students and evaluate. And then they also do a large number of wellness outreach programs so that students know about the resources as well as can gain some additional resources through that. This year, we're happy to announce that they have expanded some of their services with new groups that are available through expanding to grief group, having executive functioning sessions and workshops and group that have gone really, really well. And then also they have started groups around DBT as well on campus. So our student counseling service here has 3 clinicians working with it. Tony Mesiano, who's with us today, is the Director of Student Counseling. George Zong, our Assistant Director of Student Counseling, and he's also our outreach coordinator. And then Krista Mock is one of our clinicians. It's important to note that beyond these 3, we also have a network of clinicians available through BetterMind. And so through BetterMind, to access that service, you still go through student counseling services, but it gives students additional clinician options that might be available at different hours or times, but also hold different identities sometimes that can help better match the type of clinician that a student is looking for with what their needs are as a student or where they are location-wise. If they happen to be out of state, sometimes our clinicians here on campus, though they meet virtually and in person with students, there are some states that they cannot serve based on licensing requirements. And so BetterMind is a great option to make sure our students, even if they're rotating out of state or live out of state, are able to access those services as well. 21% of students last academic year utilized the student counseling services at some point during the academic year, and that comprised over 2,000 appointments, over 30 hours of crisis, and then 25 outreach presentations that they were able to do and engage with our community through, which is really important work, but it shows that 1 in 5 students are utilizing the student counseling service really to maintain their own wellness and to be able to navigate graduate and professional education and being successful in their program. In order to contact the student counseling service, there's 3 different ways you can do that. You can call, you can email scs@rosalindfranklin.edu, or you can visit them they are in the lower level of the RWCLC, right near the fitness center. So right around the corner from the fitness center is where they are located. It's also important to note that even if the student counseling service isn't available or is closed at night and on the weekend, there's always someone here listening. So campus safety is here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can be contacted at this phone number at 847-578-3288, and they can provide immediate assistance to students through someone from the Division of Student Success and Wellness that's on call, so that we can ensure students are always safe and always have access to the resources that they need to be able to maintain things during that time. I like to remind students, so starting in May of 2023, so most of our students now, on the back of their ID card, if you flip it over, there's a QR code there that brings you to the crisis resources available through student counseling. And if you started your education prior to May of 23, or you're a faculty or staff member, if you go to the main RFU website and just type in crisis on the top search bar, you will get this crisis resource page, which has great resources not only for students, but also national resources that are great, and employee resources as well. So good resources to be able to link and help someone who might be in a mental health crisis or need immediate assistance there as well. And then here on campus, we also have a lot of spaces that we hope provide wellness outlets for individuals on campus. That includes our fitness center, the TV lounge, the disc golf course. We have the group exercise room that provides a lot of fitness classes and aerobic exercise classes that have instructors that are not only students, but also faculty and staff that participate as an instructor. So it's a great way to get involved. We have the game room. We have the athletic fields, including basketball, volleyball courts, and tennis courts. And we most recently have added pickleball over at our tennis courts, so that's a great addition. And then we have the reflection room that's located in the Basic Sciences building. We also have the nap nook that's available. And of all of these resources, they're all available to employees with the exception of the nap nook. The nap nook is the only one that is student specific, but all of these resources are available and accessible to employees as well, which I think is important to be able to communicate as well. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Sally to talk a little bit about the employee resources along the way as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you all. As you may recall, we introduced a new employee assistance program effective October 1st. We did send out an introductory announcement about that on October 1st, but I'm just going to cover a few things specific to this new program because it is a very robust program, and I think there are things that all of us can take advantage of to help us with our mental health and wellness. Next, Shelly, thank you. So the EAP contact information, there is an 800 number that you can contact, and there is a website and also a code. So that code is specific to employees of Rosalind Franklin. So if you go out to the EAP, you will need to enter that code, or if you call the EAP, you will need to give them that number or code to get access to the services. So counselors are available 24 hours, 7 days a week. And the sessions, the model that we have is 3 sessions per issue. So if you are experiencing an issue yourself, you will get 3 sessions for that issue. And then if 2 months down the line, you experience another issue, maybe related to parenting or elder care, you again can call and get another 3 sessions based on that issue. So it's a very robust program, which is a definite improvement over the EAP that we had prior to October 1st. The other important thing is services are provided to all members of your household. So if you have children, teenagers, your spouse, a parent living with you, they all have access to these services. So we encourage you to take advantage of that. And again, it's confidential support from EAP professionals. Next. So the additional services that they offer, so it's not just for counseling or when you're in crisis. They have a really neat life and work website where they offer a number of free webinars and also online training courses. So I was on the site this morning. They offer over 100 webinars on various topics. There's strategies to enjoy the holidays. There's empathy on empty, healthy connections, calm down. There's meditation, relaxation, all kinds of topics. And then there's also online training courses, and they've got over 50 of those that you can take advantage of. Again, all of these are on various topics, whether it's relationships, emotional health, parenting, burnout, stress. There's a wealth of information on this site. And they also offer a chat feature, and that's available from 8 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. So if you're on their page and you're not sure where to look, just chat. They've got a chat feature. Use the AI and get to where you need to go. Next. Other resources that are available for these types of services include our Blue Cross health plans. So if you are on our insurance plans, you do have access to wellness options. So you would go to Blue Access for members, then go to My Health and select Wellness. And then depending on the plan that you're on, there will be different options available to you. In addition, there's national organizations like Mental Health America and Mindshare Partners. Their websites are here for you to access, but they also offer free resources. In addition, we do have the HR Insight page, which is called Working at RFU. And if you just click on that Working at RFU, you will see a tab that says RFU Employee Wellbeing. And again, just click there and it has not only information about the EAP, but additional articles, places to access, and even those crisis hotline numbers that Shelly referenced earlier. So we've got it all in one place for you. So again, check that out. And of course, if you have any questions about anything, contact my team or me, and we're always happy to help and serve you. Next.
All right, and I'll put up the QR code one more time in case people want to capture that. And then in just a moment here, I'm actually going to take the PowerPoint down and we're going to turn it over to Tony, who is going to guide us through an activity.
Yeah, and on the way to Tony, I just want to remind people you can put questions about anything, including anonymous questions, into the Q&A. Having questions is always fun, so feel free to do that.
Option should be set.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be a part of this conversation today. My style is more interactive, but this is an exercise that you don't have to do anything in terms of participating. It's just really going to be more observing. And as I go through this activity, I'm going to have intentional pauses, and then we'll kind of work through the rest of it. So with that, I'm looking at essentially, because I'm a visual guy, I know it doesn't maybe always translate on virtual world, but this is a backpack. And I want us to imagine kind of collectively the things that each of us might carry into the holidays. And so I'm going to list some general ones that I think might be universal to us all. And then I'm going to pause and just have you kind of reflect on maybe what you feel that you might be carrying into the holidays in the backpack. So some of them can be expectations, unfinished conversations, grief, family dynamics, pressure to be grateful, fatigue, pressure to perform, guilt, loneliness, comparison, self-criticism, fear of falling behind academically, cultural expectations, and overcommitment. So I'm just going to take a pause here and have you think about if any of those resonate with you and what you might be carrying into the holidays. What's interesting about these, none of them are really new. The holidays tend to amplify and make them louder. And so a lot of times when people are carrying these things into the holidays, they feel that there's this need that they either have to continue to carry it. And as all of those, as I read, they kind of might weigh me down more. Or some people might feel that maybe one of the options to address what's heavy for me is maybe just kind of drop it and hopefully maybe it will be out of sight, out of mind kind of experience. And then some people might feel like, okay, maybe I just need to hoist it over my shoulder and kind of suck it up, kind of buttercup experience. And so one of the things, again, looking at those options, those aren't very sustainable. So what can be more sustainable sometimes is looking at how to shift what you're holding and maybe recognize by certain shifts that could mean how I am experiencing what I'm actually holding. And so one of the examples that comes to mind is, although I'm using a backpack, I use this analogy often with in my therapy sessions that when we look at like when we travel, since obviously this is the time of year that many of us are going to be traveling, but if we fly and if we have to check in baggage, a lot of baggage at the baggage claim look identical. And so it's really easy to pick up someone else's baggage. The idea really is to look at asking yourself with all of these things that you're carrying into the holidays is whose baggage am I carrying? And maybe examining what's in your baggage and what might you feel truly belongs to you. And if it doesn't truly belong to you, beginning to take the first step of even giving yourself permission to set that down if it doesn't truly belong to you. I recognize it's a whole lot easier said than done because all of those things that I mentioned that could be carried in the backpack clearly weigh people down both physically and psychologically. And if it was so easy to do, you probably would have already done it already to just get rid of it. But part of it, I think, is giving myself permission to really look at with what I'm holding, why am I wanting to hold that? And do I have to keep holding it? And so, again, just giving you a moment to think about some of the things that I've mentioned. I'm going to pause here. And again, there's no need for thinking that you have to fix anything in this moment and that there's no sharing in this moment. Just for you to contemplate a little bit about kind of what's been said. Okay, I'm going to come back and have a really sense of looking at making meaning of what you have in this bag and trying to figure out, like I said a moment ago, which bag that you want to claim. And that oftentimes we do things for the sake of doing it. So I've heard this story, and maybe some of you have heard it before too. but I heard this story several years back where a mother was asking her mother, why did they always cut the ends of the ham off when they were making it for the Christmas meal? And the mother really wasn't certain as to why they did that. And so she asked her mother. And what it was is nothing essentially profound other than the fact that the pan didn't fit the entire ham in it. And so, how that reflects often to kind of how we are with carrying things sometimes is that we just do things in the way that we know it. We don't necessarily check things out and maybe step back and ask ourselves to examine, why am I doing things the way that I'm doing? And do I have to continue to do them that way? Um, so part of this is just to get you in the process of thinking, because as Dr. Sousa had said, that sometimes the holidays are less than joyous for people, and it carries a lot of different things. And just remind yourself that it only has to be what is relevant for you. I recognize again that can be a lot, because it's often connected to these expectations and to other people. But again, sometimes I'm a simple guy, and recognizing that sometimes the most simplest things are the most profound things. Not the easiest necessarily, but just reminding myself that it's okay to take something out of the bag if I don't want it. So that's essentially all I have. Just wanted some food for
Yeah,
thought.
I appreciate that, Tony. And we have a question I'll get to in a moment. But one of the um, I've spent a lot of holidays rounding at the hospital, and most of the time when you're at the hospital and rounding, most of the people there don't want to be there. Some of us have to be there because somebody has to be there, and usually I liked being there, but certainly the patients don't want to be there. But that doesn't mean that it, I think it speaks to what you're expecting out of a season or any particular event, right? And sometimes the best we can do is just to be there for people and be good to them and treat them like somebody who, we care about. And that sometimes is enough when you're facing things that are really, really difficult. A season doesn't have to be joyous, right? It just has to be, you just have to be with people who care about you, whether or not they're the people you expect to have care for you. So, yeah, I really appreciate that. And I also want to just, for those of you who have it close to hand, the latest issue of Helix actually they have some fun, fun, I don't know, they're like acute stress sort of things, and they're straightforward, some of them, like breathing. And in fact, deep breathing is one of the interesting acute stress relieving things. This is not the backpack, right? This is, you are acutely stressed, something bad is going on. And everybody from people who perform, you'll see people, even students, after a test, they take a deep breath, right? You actually breathe less when you're stressed. And so the sigh or the deep breath following. And if you do that before, it will help. They train special forces soldiers, deep breathing, because of course they become afraid and stressed, and they use that. So anyway, breathing, moving, physical activity to whatever extent you can is often useful. And then I love this one: disengage daily from doom scrolling. It is so easy to find bad news because we're being farmed for bad news, right? The social media knows we will click on bad news, and so the algorithms send them to us. Seeking support, identifying sources of stress, and while you have the magazine out, friends, you can see some of the work of some of our scientists, like Jan Urban, who works on stress in the brain. There's some stuff on stress in other diseases. Anyway, as you're thinking about it, feel free to look at the great work that people from RFU are doing. So, following Tony's sort of exercise in that, I'm going to go to Anonymous, and then we'll come back around and maybe we can just talk a little bit about how you guys are thinking about either the holidays or stress or following up on this. So Anonymous asks, and this is actually, so we'll come on to our topic here in a second, I suppose. Cannabis was rescheduled to Schedule 3 by executive order yesterday. Can you provide clarity on how this impacts the university's zero tolerance policy, if at all? So the first answer to that is no, I can't provide any clarity because an executive order does not provide clarity, right? It doesn't necessarily, first of all, it doesn't change anything about legality. So if you were a researcher working on stress and anxiety, and we know that in states like Illinois and Michigan, where cannabis is legal, lots and lots of people are using THC and marijuana as sort of a home remedy for stress. Let's say you were a researcher and you wanted to look at that, it's still not legal to do that, right? So second, if you're taking it under Schedule 3, in theory, the FDA would be regulating how you get access to it. And it's still illegal to produce and distribute in this country, regardless of an EO. So I guess I can provide a clarity. Nothing really changes, right? For our researchers, for our people, for whether or not it's federally legal, in a level that I do not understand, it apparently does change the banking regulations for people who run dispensaries or whatever. That's what they call them in Michigan. I don't know what they're called in Illinois, but so and actually that is one of the things that we see during the holidays, right? There is an uptick in substance use and things like that. So and I don't know, I feel like when I've been the last few times I was working in the hospital since Michigan made cannabis legal, the number of people in just for hyperemesis, for vomiting, a lot from daily chronic cannabis use, all of a sudden that showed up just like chronic alcohol shows up on an internal medicine service every time you're on. So thoughts, comments about any of this from our panel?
So I can't answer specifically for the university policy, but a lot of my clinical background has been working with people with co-occurring disorders. And so I'm also a certified addiction counselor. And so the last 12 years prior to joining RFU, I was part of a mental health day program, specifically working with group therapy around this very issue with mood disorders and substance use disorders. So what we would often talk about is that because in South Carolina, where I moved from, marijuana is still illegal there. But we would have conversations that like linking it to alcohol, just because it's legal doesn't make it safe. And then the other part is that when you're looking at substance use, generally not in the moment. Again, we would have conversations that generally not in the moment of use, but generally the next day, your brain is depleted of healthy serotonin. And so that actually exacerbates anxiety and or depression. And so part of the problem sometimes could be if somebody was struggling with a mood disorder, you weren't really able to decipher if it was truly a mood disorder because the substances mimic that. And so what we would ask people, there were they had random urinary drug screens because of the nature of the program, but it would be hard for us to tell them that we're going to look at the doctor evaluating you further for your medication because we really can't, they're not going to be able to adjust the medicines until you get a level of that out of your system. So that's kind of where we would have conversations. And also part of it was never me as the individual saying, and I was always tell the group, like, how many of you think by a raise of your hands that I'm here to tell you that you can't use your substances? Like, I'm not. Part of the job was looking at what is a potential reason that you'd even consider to make a choice of making a change in this area. What impact, if any, is it having on you? And then we would have various ways of addressing that, but it was never me telling someone you should or shouldn't use. We would explore that, obviously, what could be the potential benefits of not using and what would be some drawbacks. of, continuing. So
Yeah.
that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, alcohol is by far, well, actually, I don't know that it's by far anymore, but the most common depressant, right, that people ingest. And it's a whole part of our traditions during the holidays, right? And certainly one of the difficulties in primary care when you're trying to treat somebody who has depression and has also alcohol use, significant alcohol use, is their depression could actually be the alcohol. And to your point, right, and that it's very difficult to figure out what diagnosis to make and what therapy to head, what management to head down until you can sort all of that out. Um, Sally, Shelly, across all of these conversations, anything you want to add?
I would just add, I think you are very right. The change in schedule does not change the federal drug-free schools or workplace acts. So at least, I interact a lot around students with our drug testing requirements on campus, and it really does not change anything about our processes or how those will be conducted for students. So that's something to know. And we do see sometimes with the legalization in the state of Illinois, sometimes there is confusion around that issue. So I think that it's good to be able to talk about that and say that, our policy does include that there cannot be use of marijuana within our policies and to be compliant in our drug-free testing environment.
Same on the employee side. So yeah, we are part of that Drug-Free Workplace Act. If you're under the influence, you can be terminated. So yeah, we don't want you coming to work under the influence of any kind of drug, and this would still remain the same. So our policies will not change based on that latest legislation.
It should be noted too that in the student policies, if you are struggling with some type of addiction or substance use, you can come forward before you might be identified as someone who's using and actually identify that you need help, and we will actually help you in that rehabilitation process and make sure that you're in a safe educational or clinical environment in which to do that and be really supportive of that. And so know that there's help there, and we are very supportive of students being able to get the help and assistance they need to really be able to continue their professions and their work along the way as well. So, and student counseling has been a great partner in that as well.
So this is one of the opportunities where I have a chance to learn something, which happen, regularly throughout the day. But there are plenty of states that have really effective substance use treatment programs for health providers, usually nurses and doctors, but I know that it's broader than that. They usually come with a really active testing policy as well, but that they are really, really successful. Especially you need to enter them as a volunteer. So is that the way Illinois works? Do they have a state program that helps people healthcare providers who have substance use issues?
I'm not 100%, I'm still relatively new to the Chicagoland area. I know where I moved from in South Carolina, they had a 5-year monitoring program that again was voluntary, but that they would, have the ability to meet with a therapist on a regular basis. They had, random drug screens, but essentially how we were not able to say to someone, like when someone would come to the program that might have been a nurse or a doctor that was diverting medications, that they had to do this. It was a voluntary thing, but it was promoted as it allowed for them to really keep their license, as a way of doing so. And so I don't know specifically though for here, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I think I've heard of that, but thankfully I don't have any experience with that here at Rosalind Franklin. So I don't know if there's somebody else on the phone or the call that would know
Yeah.
that.
And again, from the state of Illinois, I don't know the central resource, but I do know that we have referred students to a facility in Northwest Indiana that specializes specifically with health professionals who may be struggling with substance use. And has been a great program in helping to rehabilitate along the way. And so there are some really great examples of programs out there to do just that and to be really helpful in and really seeing individuals be successful along the way too.
Yeah, I mean, I've referred people to the Michigan one. I know a little bit about the Indiana one. And basically, you know, in each of those cases, right, if you appear and you enter the program as a volunteer, it is designed for people to keep their license. And so I got to believe Illinois has something similar, but well, I'll get to learn more about that. You know, I guess one of the, are there other student programs, and you talked about it, but like one of the key things that I've seen housing and others do are these efforts to, you know, I was at a turkey dinner near Thanksgiving and things like that. The community events are really important to how we all feel about going through things like the holidays, but also just in general. I saw that there was popcorn, cocoa, and hot tea. Strangely, not coffee. I don't quite understand who set up the menu outside the library, but I don't know if Shelly, you can, or Sally, you guys can talk a little bit about those sort of higher touch, lower stakes kinds of cultural efforts.
Absolutely. I think wellness programming we see not only from our student organizations who have over 900 events each year, and I think are a great opportunity for
Yeah.
individuals to find something that they're passionate about and to find others who are passionate about those same things on campus. But I think there's also some larger efforts that happen here on campus. Coming up in January, we start our wellness weeks for students, which is always a really popular grouping of weeks, but also one of the more difficult times we know for students. January and February become very long. They are winter months where the weather isn't that great. The sun might not be out as much as it normally it is. Academically, it's one of the most difficult times in many of the programs with just the rigor of the curriculum. And so wellness weeks are there to really remind students to take breaks and to try something new. We usually kick it off with our annual breakfast for dinner, and individuals, faculty, and staff from around the university come and serve the students. It's one of the great community events to just connect over a free meal here on campus, and is a great way. So we're looking forward to that on January 21st. But we had like an exact like petting zoo last year that went over really well.
Hey, wait. What's that? What's that?
The exotic petting.
Yeah.
So they brought in they had a sloth and a snake and a tarantula and a bunch of other animals that would not make me feel less stressed, but we had over 200 students who came and that helped them feel less stressed. So it was a wonderful event for them to see just different animals here on campus and are able to interact with them through a great organization. On a regular basis, we bring in dog therapy, and the dog therapy sometimes has turtles and bunnies and other animals that they bring in too, which is a great ongoing event that we do.
I just have to say, like, where I was before, the dogs would show up for whatever the equivalent of finals week was.
Yeah.
They were always a great hit. And the thing that always amazed me when I worked in the hospital was when the therapy dogs showed up, no matter what was going on, the sort of emotional temperature of the whole place just dropped. You know, like everybody, it was a little bit, you know, I have somebody in my ceiling here, but I don't know if you can hear that, but yeah, anyway, there was just something about, of course, the dogs are, you know, they like everybody, and there are probably, I know there are a few people who get anxious around dogs, but but it really is remarkably effective.
Absolutely. And we hear from our students that they love engaging in that programming. We also run a thrift store during that time. So it's a great way to not only clean out your closets along the way, but gain some new things. So it's one of our more popular events that students do. And even students have been participating in the planning this year. There's going to be an improv show and a karaoke night and some other just outlets to be able to make connections.
Doesn't karaoke just increase stress? Or is that just
I
me?
mean, for some, singing, I am not the one with the
I'm
voice.
joking.
So
Yeah.
I will not be the one singing at
My
karaoke,
palms sweat
but
at the thought. Yeah.
I have seen some great talent from our students. So I know that for some, that's a really stress relieving. We have the music room, which I didn't mention as a resource too, but we see a lot of students utilize the music room on campus as just a way to de-stress as well on campus. So I think those are good examples of some of the programming. We've been doing a Crafternoon Tea series where you can come and tinker and make something or take some supplies to make something later, but have some tea or coffee along the way as well. So great examples of classes. And then obviously we have the regular access to the fitness center and those fitness classes that really give you the chance to try something new and different here on campus while still staying physically well as well along the way.
Yeah, I went to the sip and paint. It was a mocktail, not an alcoholic sipping, but that SNMA, the Student National Medical Association, ran, and I know that there were one of the housing groups I met with had a crafting night and things like that. The doing stuff with your hands is really, or your senses in general, is it's a great way to be with people.
We say a lot of times our curriculum and many of the programs, students are using one side of their brain. We try to get them to use that other creative side